There are shows in this world that we will never fully understand, except Ghost Adventures. We have watched every episode to build our obsession, our fandom.
Watching alongside each other because no one we know really gives a damn. Watching Zach and crew catch groundbreaking proof of the paranormal, inspiring us to explore our own interest in otherworldly phenomena. This is our podcast. We are Paranormal Putas.
Hey, everybody, Leah's over here buying the Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey jacket right now. And it is a really cute bomber jacket. It's only $55 anyways. Big sister, kick us off.
Hey, everybody, it's me, Leah. And I
me.
did not purchase a jacket. Sorry. It's already a disaster. Hey, everybody, it's me, Leah.
And it's me, Bethany.
And we're the Paranormal Putas. And let me start by saying I was not purchasing a jacket. I was just looking at the deets, and I got a little wrapped up because it is a really cool Bill and Ted Bogus Journey jacket.
And it's only $55.
And it's only $55.
Original price, $599.
I mean, realistically, yes, in today's society. But that's not what we're here to talk about, damn it.
Fuck your consumerism.
We're here to talk about sharing some personal stories. A little interview we had with Alexis of City Alchemist.
Yeah, we're really excited to have Alexis on. Alexis is the one of the owners of City Alchemist, which is a magic shop here in town that we have talked about quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
Alexis has also written some books like Magia, Invoking Mexican Magic, and Blood of Brujeria. And Alexis is also working on a couple other books. Basically, he's just a badass curandero. And we found out about him because, as you all know, we're fans of the Night Owl podcast, and he was on it. He was, he works with Steven. So that's, and then also Marta was like, I've got these friends that have this really cool shop. So, so it's just kind of like all signs pointed to the one and only.
Yeah, man. And funny story about this, he's a great person because this is the second time we've had to record Alexis. He falls into the category of lost interviews of season 666.
That's what we should call it.
So this is so it's really good. So what you get to hear us talk about is not really the first time we've sat down and chatted with Alexis, but it's still just so good.
We hope you enjoy listening to our interview with Alexis. We had a super fun time.
Yeah. Take it away.
Take me away.
Hey, everybody. We are super excited to be here with Alexis. It feels familiar, but, not. So all at the same time, I feel like. So we really want to thank you for taking the time to chat with us. Maybe again, but, for our listeners, not.
A parallel universe, we talked once.
Yeah.
That's another plane of existence right now.
No, so of course, thank you so much for joining us today to chat about some spooky things and really how we start all of our conversations is really just kind of jumping in and asking our guests either about their first paranormal experience or their most profound or both if they're different, So if we want to jump in.
Okay, let's go with my first experience because it's my most memorable. And I've talked about this on the Night Owl podcast before, but I grew up in a small house that was haunted. I did not know it was haunted until many years later. I just knew that there were certain parts of the house I was afraid of. And then many years later, my mom would tell me that she had an experience in the house where she actually saw like a full spirit in the house. And the story is that the people who owned it were very much like those types of people, very much like me, where the house has to be clean all the time. And my mom got very sick and she couldn't clean anything. And it was like me, my brother, who were kids at the time, and then my dad, and we're like leaving messes everywhere. So in the middle of the night, she woke up and she saw a woman standing at the edge of her bed, and there was a man next to her. And the woman looked really upset, and she was just like, I don't know who these people are. And she kind of freaked out. Well, she told the neighbor about it, the neighbor was like, well, that's my parents' old house. And it sounds like you described my parents. And she's like, let me ask you a question. Is the house clean? And she goes, no, not right now because, I've been sick. And she goes, that's why. She's like, my mom always had it immaculately clean. So, also on that block, there was a famous ghost story of this old nunnery, which apparently a nun had hung herself in. And then there was a very old house called the Vasquez house, which supposedly everybody knew was very haunted. And when I was a kid, I was in Boy Scouts, and we would take go door to door and sell like buckets of popcorn. And remember going to the Vasquez house, and we were like talking to Mrs. Vasquez, and we kept hearing all this like noise upstairs. It sounded like somebody was either like doing construction or doing something, like just lots of noise. And so my mom was like, oh, is Mr. Vasquez like working on something? And she was like, oh no, that's just the ghost. And we were like, huh? And she goes, oh yeah. She's like, for as long as we've known, ever since we've lived in this house, there's something that's in the upstairs floor, and it never, never stops. It's always making noise all the time. And she's like, we have these red curtains up there, and if you take them down, they'll be up the next day because he always wants those red curtains up. And for years, even after they had moved out, because supposedly the ghost had pushed one of them down the stairs, for years, those red curtains were always up. I think now they're down finally, but like the house had been abandoned for years. And then recently went on the market for sale, and somebody just bought it. So I don't know if they're going to be having experiences or not. I guess we'll find out pretty soon. So yeah, that was probably my first experience. But like, growing up in South Texas, like you get all kinds of fun stories and folklore, especially in small little towns. So that's kind of like how everything started for me.
I was just going to say, like, when experiencing, this situation and hearing these stories, how did you process them? Like, did you immediately believe, or, I mean, I don't know, like, however old you were, like, how did you process that information?
I don't know how old I was. I'm guessing I had to have been like 8 or 9, maybe possibly 10. I do know that I definitely believed. I had always believed in like ghosts, witches. When I was a kid, like a little kid, I always wanted to be a witch every Halloween. And my mom would be like, no, witches are for girls. So she would have me dress up as a vampire. And so now I'm like obsessed with vampires, and that's all her fault. And she's like, why do you always like goth stuff so much? Well, let me think. Maybe because you dressed me up as a vampire. But I always wanted to be a witch, and I think that I've always had a very strong connection to witchcraft, to magic. And then growing up in South Texas, you hear all about, curanderos, folk healers, brujos and brujas, which are witches. And so it's not spoken about as something that's make-believe. It's spoken about as fact. Like, oh yes, there's a famous curandero that's 30 miles away. There's a famous bruja that lives down the street, So it's not ever really given as a make-believe tense. In school it was, in a sense, you know what I mean? But like never when you were talking to like, people that you knew, like aunts and uncles, they would always tell you about the famous witch or the famous, curandero or curandera. But then, in school, all they had were books about like witches are fun and they're fantasy, and and then I got to junior high school and go looking for those same books on witchcraft and end up finding actual books on witches, like Sybil Leek, Alex Sanders, all these famous witches from England, and Raymond Buckland and Gerald Gardner. So I was like, oh, okay, so they are real, and not only are they real like here, but they're real like everywhere. And so I started kind of learning about witchcraft and magical practices a lot more around that time.
That's awesome. I know that last time we spoke, you kind of, one of the things I would really love for our listeners to know is kind of like your journey. Cause I mean, this is the tip. This feels like kind of where, you're researching now, you're getting into it. And I would love for people to hear about that journey and where you are now, where it took you.
Yeah, that's definitely probably where it really hit, was junior high school. Prior to that, it was me kind of like, grabbing things from the backyard and setting them on fire and calling it spells,
Yes.
But, I think we all did that. I don't know, maybe.
We did. We did. I made blood potions.
Yeah, exactly. But it was probably then, that was like the biggest time for sure, where I was like, oh, okay, like there's, I got my first set of tarot cards. I started learning more about what witchcraft was, mostly Wicca at the time. I had a friend who was also really into it, and we all kind of like started to learn more. And then at the same time, it was a little bit later than that when I was in, must have been in high school. We actually met a bruja who actually practiced like witchcraft, like Mexican witchcraft. And she was teaching us all kinds of crazy, weird stuff, like how to curse people, how to hurt people. It was never like, I think, I think we talked about this, once before, this idea of like witchcraft in brujeria is not the same thing as witchcraft here, right? Witchcraft here, it's like, oh, it's like love and light, and we can do spells for good and spells for bad. But where I grew up, like if you're a bruja, you just want to basically mess people up. Like that's your plan, you know what I mean? And then maybe help people in a sense of like cleansing them or removing things from them. But most of the time it's like curse, And then curanderos or curanderas are mostly the healers, and they're the ones that help people and give give teas and help remove curses from people. But that was like a big kind of a wake-up call, I think, for me, was to realize like, oh, this stuff not only is like legit, but it's like legit. Like there's some crazy stuff out there. And learning from her was intense. Like I had a situation I remember where she wanted us to curse some lady that was pissing her off. And she had a house that she lived in, like with her family, and then next to it she called her witch house, which was like literally this dilapidated house that could have fallen down at any minute. And in the kitchen she had all of her stuff. Like she had like pots and pans and things with jars and all kinds of stuff. And we had this big pot, and she was doing this working with wax where she was like cursing this lady. And she kept saying things like, make she get a heart attack, all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And then she threw lamp oil and lit it on fire, and it started to sound like a heartbeat. Like it was like, and then it got like really fast, like, and then it's like went boom, like just like flew up. And I was like, that's crazy. And then I got sick. And then I got better, and then I got sick again, and then I got better, and I got sick again. So I got sick 3 times in a row, like sick, better, sick, better, sick, better. And I remember the doctor was like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, why are you getting sick? And I was like, I don't know. But for me, I think because I was like with that Wicca mentality of like, it comes back to you times 3, I literally got sick 3 times just being there and helping her with that. So it was pretty intense. And I mean, I have crazy stories about this lady. She was the one that taught me about something that we do practice a lot in brujeria is you have to kind of dominate your books. Like as you can see behind me, I love books. I got all kinds of crazy spell books, but the really, really dark ones that have like really intense stuff, she would dominate them by like throwing them across the room, or she would like treat them like trash basically, because she was like, you don't want those spells to overpower you. You want to overpower them. And then she would put them underneath like the bedpost, like put the bedpost on top of them. So she's like, you don't open unless I say you open. Like it was crazy, like type of stuff, which you would think, like this is some of the stuff you would see like in movies, but it was like legit. Like she would talk about that. Like you need to wrap it up in string, you could wrap it up in chain. And then when I would talk to friends of mine many years later who grew up in the valley around brujeria, they were like, oh yeah, this is something that's legit. Like very few people know about that practice. So really, really intense work. And then from there, I graduated, went to college. I practiced a lot of ritual magic at the time, a lot of witchcraft as well. And then really started kind of, because my thing is like Catholicism was a big issue for me growing up queer and growing up in a small town and being told you can't be this, you can't be that because of Catholicism. I had to really, I pushed myself away from it for the longest time. So curanderismo and a lot of those practices that are very Catholic, like Santa Muerte, for example, were kind of a turnoff for me, but I ended up finding my way back through Santa Muerte. And that was in 2002, 2003. So it's been about 20 years, a little over 20 years of working with Santa Muerte. And that kind of got me back into the roots of working with curanderismo, working with brujeria, and understanding the Catholic, or let's just say the folk Catholic aspect to that. Because people will say, oh, I don't want to be Catholic. Well, it's just not Catholic. Like, you can't go to the Pope and be like, hey, so I want to do this Amare with San Miguel. Is that cool? I'm pretty sure the Pope will be like, no, we don't do that. Right? But that's what folk Catholicism is, right? Is I can do a love spell with Saint Miguel if I need to, because that is a big part of our culture.
Yeah,
and
I love that.
I guess that's pretty much it for the journey. And then from there, like to Austin, met teachers here. I have some teachers here still. Marika, who's an amazing teacher here. She's a medicine woman, Apache medicine woman. And then I had some teachers in San Antonio, some teachers in Corpus, and just kind of like learning along the way.
Mm-hmm. Do you still believe in that rule of 3? I forgot.
No.
That's what I thought. Yeah.
Brujeria does not really believe in any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. There's a little trick, and I'll teach it to you. Why not? When you do something like that, if you're doing something intense to hurt somebody or anything like that, it's always good to just balance it out in some way, right? That doesn't mean like you have to go and like be, the saint or whatever, but just do something charitable, for example, like go feed the homeless, go take a blanket to somebody, give something for free. Like here's a good thing, for example, if I have to do something like that, which I rarely have to, but if I do, I'll go and do like a reading for somebody for free or something to help somebody because I want to kind of keep that balance. You know what I mean? It's not necessarily a ×3 rule because I'm not doing anything ×3. It's just that I want to kind of keep myself in check. That's a big thing. And that's something that Santa Muerte also teaches is just keeping that balance. So that's why I always recommend it. But no, I don't believe that things come back to you ×3. I think I was just psyching myself out at a young age, not knowing what the hell was going on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I thought that I remembered you mentioning that because we were talking about your practice and your book and kind of how you got there, because you have 2 or 3 books. I know you 2 for sure. Was there a third coming?
It's 2, and there's a lot more coming.
Okay.
Well, when I moved here, I was living here for a while. Eventually, I met Eric. Eric and I were like, you know what? We really can't find the shops that we want to shop at. So it would be really cool if we could like create our own store. And then eventually one of our friends was like, hey, we have a spot. We want you to put your store there. And we were like, okay, but we don't have a store. And they're like, yeah, well, you can figure it out. And that was right before COVID. So then COVID hit, everything shut down. And one of a publisher was like, hey, I want you all to write books on Mexican witchcraft. And we're like, well, we got nothing else to do because we're stuck at home. So we said yes. And we wrote Magia, Invoking Mexican Magic. And then the one thing she told us, she was like, you cannot put anything like dark or like brujeria in there. And we're like, well, that's going to be kind of hard because we're writing about all the different forms of magia, like magia verde, magia roja. And we're like, well, what are you going to do for magia negra? Well, another part of magia negra is just working with spirits or divination. So we added that part. So then after we published that book, she's like, okay, now you can write the book on brujeria. And we're like, cool, that makes sense. She wanted it to be its own book. Mm-hmm. And that is how Blood of Brujeria came about. And we get so many people who talk about how that book is like intense, how I can't believe you have a death spell in there. And we're like, it's brujeria. Like that's what you all wanted. We gave it to you. You know what I mean? Like you wanted to know what it really is. That's what it really is. You know,
you asked for this. All I did was
kill somebody.
Yeah. Oh
yeah,
my God,
exactly.
Amazing.
So that's how we wrote those. And then it was still during COVID that we actually reopened up City Alchemist Witch Shop, which we are now located on E6. And right now we're working on a few different books. So I'm working on one book on just Mexican witchcraft that's kind of more, I don't want to say this because it gives it a little bit of a cliche, but it's a more Don Juan approach, like Carlos Castaneda, like more like story, working that way and understanding witchcraft from that perspective. And then Eric, I believe, was working on a book on just like Amares, which are like extreme love spells. And then I'm also working on a Santa Muerte book, which I've been working on for quite a while. And a book on Don Pedrito Jaramillo, the famous curandero, where I grew up, that area. So a book on just his cures, like the things that he would do. So it's not necessarily a book on how to cure, but what he would do as cures. Because the reason I say that is like, if you get sick, you might remember a remedy that your grandma taught you that's like, oh yeah, just go drink this tea and it'll help you. But with him, he would be like, go drink 3 glasses of water and go to bed, and in the morning you'll be fine. And it didn't make any sense, but it would work, right? So it's going to be those like things written in a book. So they may work if you have the faith, which is what he was all about, and they may just, give you some water. So
Hey, that's good for you too.
Yeah, but just
We're all
hydration.
dehydrated. Look,
we're all
dehydrated.
dehydrated all the time as I drink my coffee. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah, as I drink all my tea. All these diuretics.
Exactly.
Yeah, man.
I love that.
That's awesome. Well, we love your shop. We've had
Yes.
readings in there before. And one of the things we've mentioned multiple times on the show, like in previous seasons, when talking to people who kind of like started their journey looking like you were doing the research, going into shops, looking for your people, we all noted that like when you go into certain shops, you feel it,
Yeah.
whether it's like your people or not. And like as much as I really wanted to belong somewhere, it never felt like, okay, I can relate to it.
Right.
You know, so it's really cool that you've created this space where it's like, you know, the people with our roots and DNA in us that we all share, you know, can connect to it because
Right.
you latch on to it. Like, I don't know how to explain it. It's like right brain stuff, right? So it's just a feeling like you latch on to it. So it's really cool that you guys created
Yeah.
that space. And we love all the things you guys offer, including the Limbias.
Oh yeah, no, and we talk about it all the time. Like we might be fangirling, and you may not know it, but like we're constantly telling people, like, just walk into City Alchemist and you'll know. Like,
Yeah.
like you'll feel it and you'll know.
You'll feel it.
You know, like, and I tell people all the time, like, oh, who could I go to or who? And I'm like, you gotta find Alexis, and you gotta find Eric.
Yeah.
City Alchemist, because you, we really feel that it's just genuine, and you're coming from a place where it's educational. You're not going to misdirect, right? You're not in it for the sake of, oh, this is spells and this can be a thing, right? Like you're not in it for the
Hokey.
bottom line, right? Or being hokey. Yeah, it really is an educational process and something that you offer the community. So it's just really beautiful. And like, and we mentioned in the last episode, I think the last episode, that'll never be heard. But we mentioned last time, like we've participated in some of that, and it just, the feeling that we walk away with is just, like to Bethany's point, you just can tell that it's something genuine and it's rooted in something real. So we think that that's really cool that you're able to embody that and present that and grow a community based on those things.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people do this for the fame, which you're not really going to get much fame out of this, but you know, I guess. They do it for fame, they do it for attention, and you know, we've never been that. We never were like, we're gonna write books one day, and we're gonna be, you know, this. It was literally like, hey, y'all want to write a book? We're like, okay, sure. You know, hey, y'all want to open up shop? We're like, okay, sure. You know, like it was never like, this is our goal. We want to be famous one day. You know,
Yeah.
And I think that that's a big part of it because it's always been about what we call the medicine, right? It's always been about the medicine, and we're also not very, Bethany mentioned right-brained. We're also not very like far left-brained in the sense that we try to find a good middle. So people will come in and be like, oh my God, I'm cursed. All these horrible things are happening to me. And we have to be like, okay, well, let's break it down. Let's do a reading. Let's see what's going on. Because 90% of the time, it's not really necessarily the issue. But then we'll have people who come in that are like, I don't know what's going on. I keep losing my money. I lost my job. I lost my girlfriend. I lost this and that. And then maybe we can break that down and be like, okay, maybe you did step into something that you shouldn't have, or there's something that we need to figure out. So it's never, ever the same cure for everybody. I'd say that's the biggest thing too. Everybody's going to be on a separate level, just like a magical practitioner. Every magical practitioner is on a different level. You don't start everybody at square one, right? If you're already at, you know, you've been working for a few years and you're doing a lot of good work, I'm not going to be like, cool, I want you to go take my intro course. You know, you're going to go start at, you know, maybe, I mean, you know what? I'm going to have you start with the Santa Muerte Advanced course because I think you're at this place now. So it's about the same thing with clients and the same thing with patients is you have to find out where are they at this moment? What do they need? And that's why and y'all can attest to this. Neither one of your cleansings were exactly the same, you know, because both of you needed different medicine.
Yeah, I love that. And I do want to reshare the story because I think it's fantastic. Because Bethany, we went, okay, everybody, we went. We each at our cleansing. It was great. But Bethany comes out of hers, and I'm already emotional, right? It was a really good feeling coming out of that. And so I'm emotional. I'm waiting for Bethany like in the parking lot. Bethany comes out and we just like start fucking hysterically crying together. But Bethany ends up telling me that she goes, they had to throw like they had to light a literal fire under my ass. She goes, did you have fire in yours? I said, no, what the fuck, you had fire? I said, girl, you is dark. Girl, you is dark.
I told you. I tell everybody. They don't believe me.
I said, I didn't get fire.
There's a lot of fire in that day.
Yep.
So yes, we can definitely attest. They're only going to give you what you need. They're not going to.
I did this picture like, did they set you on fire?
I said, what? I was like, I didn't get that package.
I was a little deeper in the tar than you.
But I thought that was so funny because we'll constantly say we're yin and yang. And so even just to have that experience at the cleansing level, I thought that was really funny. But no, it was also impactful because I think I can't remember who the individual was, but someone came out just to like see what was dying in your parking lot. Because me and Bethany are out there like, oh.
Yeah, I think we had a volunteer.
Yeah, he's like
a volunteer that day, and they were like, "Are you okay?"
No, obviously not, y'all.
Yeah. I'm just letting it go. Just letting the traumas go. It hurts.
It's crazy. It's crazy. We've had experiences. We've had experiences where people have lost it, even like during the cleansing when we have to help them out. I remember in particular one client where we had to be like, just let it go, and they let it go. I mean, I'm talking like every emotion just came out of this scream / cry, it just came out. And I was like, finally, like, there it is, it came out that way. But we've had people get possessed. We've had people, have spirits enter them or spirits exit them. Like we were just not ready for it. That happened to me once where I was like, whoa, I was not ready for this. Because it was actually not even my client. It was a client for Eric. And Eric had to go out of town and I was like, don't worry, I can take care of it. And, it was the mom, the daughter, and the mom's daughter. So it was like grandmother, mother, and daughter, right? And I said, let me do the grandmother first, and then I get to everybody else after, because I didn't want her having to stand up the whole time. She could sit down, So I'm working on the grandmother, and I had some music playing. I have some music playing in the background, and as I'm like cleansing her, she has like her arms out this way, and I think I'm cleansing her with plants, and then she's kind of slowly like moving her hands up and down. And I'm thinking like, okay, she's like getting into the beat, Yeah. And then all of a sudden she starts kind of like convulsing. And I can see in my mind's eye immediately this Native American spirit. And she looks very Native. She even had like her hair's down in braids and everything. And I was like, uh-oh. Like right away I was like, uh-oh, it's coming. Like I could feel the spirit coming through her, and I had to be like, nope, that's not what I'm here for. And I had to stop and like grab the rattle and shake the spirit out. And she was like, what just happened? Like she was like kind of freaking out. And I had to ask her like, I said, is there somebody like in your family who used to practice or something? It's because this is a native spirit, very strong. And it's kind of, the impression it gave me was kind of like, finally I'm coming through. So she was like, no. And then her daughter was like, wait a minute. She's like, I remember when I was a kid, I was at grandma's house and you had, or she was gone, like her mom was gone, I guess working. She's like, I was at grandma's house and we were hungry and there was no food. And they were like, Grandma, we're hungry. And she goes, okay. She's like, go to the living room, but stay out of the kitchen. And then she was like, okay, but she was like kind of spying on her to see what she was doing. She had a little cabinet in the kitchen that she opened up. She couldn't see in the cabinet, but she opened up the cabinet and she took out a cigar and she blew cigar smoke and she like was doing some kind of prayer or something like that. And then she closed the cabinet up and then immediately somebody knocks on the door. And so she comes in, she's like, Grandma, someone's at the door. She goes, go to the door, get whatever they need, and don't ask any questions, just come back inside. And she was like, what? And so she goes to the door, and there was a guy there that she didn't recognize, and the guy just gives her a carton of eggs, and then like closes the door, and then he leaves. And she's like, Grandma, he brought eggs. And she goes, okay, let me make you all some eggs. And she was like, Grandma, like, how did these eggs get here? Like, what do you know? And she was like, don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. And she was like, but she said, Grandma, you couldn't have asked for like sandwiches or pizza?
Something
But
pre-made.
when I heard that story, I was like, oh, I said, Grandma was working probably with some kind of a spirit, maybe like an Indio spirit, and what we call it, like native spirit, or a muerto, as we say. And that's probably what she was working with. And I said, but she never passed it on. She never passed it on to her daughter. She never passed it on to you. So that spirit was just kind of like waiting for this opportunity. So it was a pretty intense day. I was not expecting that to happen, especially since I was by myself. I had no help. I was like, this should be fine. It's a pretty simple cleansing. It's just 3 people. But then that happened, and I was like, whoa, we got to stop this, because it was pretty intense.
Yeah. You mentioned, I mean, just because, sensationalism and everything, the word, of course, possession pops out. But I would like to chat about it because, when people, mass majority hears it, they think of stuff that's on TV,
Yeah.
or like you're saying, people have these preconceived notions because of the media, right? So in your experiences, what is a possession like?
So possession, I mean, yes, I get the stigma because of movies and such. Possession is literally what it sounds like, in the sense that it's a spirit taking over the body. But there are levels of possession, right? And the best analogy of it that I love using with my students a lot is the car, right? So there's 4 levels of possession. The first level is you're driving the car, but at the same time, the car is doing what it wants, right? You still have control, but the car is basically driving itself, right? Then you're in the passenger seat, right? Which means like you can still jerk the wheel if you need to. You can still press the gas and the brake if you need to, but essentially the car is driving itself, and you really are just kind of along for the ride, right? There's the back seat possession, which is basically you're just kind of watching it all happen. But if things get a little too crazy, you can reach over there and jerk the wheel or press the gas or the brake or whatever you need to do. And then by far the favorite one is the trunk, which is where you have no idea what just happened. You were completely gone, like she was going through the trunk possession, because she had no idea what was going on. She just knew that she was here one second, the next second she's like covered in sweat and freaking out. That's the trunk, is where basically your spirit goes away in a little mini vacation while this other spirit takes its form and does work. It can heal people. It can, do all kinds of things for the person, depending on the spirit. So those are what I call the 4 stages, or the 4 different types of possession. And normally this is done for good. It's not done, to spew green vomit or anything like that. It's done for possessions are done because the spirit will come in, heal somebody, cleanse somebody, do some kind of spiritual work. I remember this one story in particular from a voodoo priestess that I knew that lived in New York many, many moons ago. She would get possessed by her spirit fairly consistently, and sometimes she wasn't even aware of it. So she would be driving to work, and then all of a sudden she would be in the middle of nowhere calling her husband and be like, you need to come pick me up, because she wouldn't know where she was. And so this story in particular, I remember she said she was in New York, right? So she was driving on the turnpike, and all of a sudden she is like in a total random location, and she doesn't even know where her car is, because she's not even anywhere near her car. But apparently she got possessed by her spirit, and the spirit had taken her to one of her clients' house, somebody that she knows, to do a cleansing work on somebody who was very sick, and it helped them. But then she just took off walking. The spirit took off walking, and then after a while the spirit left, and she was like in the middle of nowhere. So her husband comes, picks her up, and they're trying to find her car. They get a phone call from the police saying that they had found her car. So they get there, and they're trying to explain the situation, like, oh, well, she got sick or something, but they were like, but man, we need to try to figure out who is inside of your car. And she's like, what do you mean? She goes, well, there's a man that's sitting in the front seat that's been sitting there, and he won't react to anybody. And they're like, no, there isn't. And they're like, yeah, the police checked on him, like we've checked on him, and he's not reacting. We thought maybe he might be dead because he's just like, he's not even blinking. And then, so they were like, well, show me. So they go back to the car and there's nobody in the car. So it was like the spirit had like left something in the car to make sure that the car was protected so that nobody would mess with it. But even the police saw it, like other people saw it. So that's a very interesting story of possession. But I think that the biggest stigma it comes from is, TV makes it really, really crazy. It makes it seem like it's like this huge thing. And honestly, if you ever see anybody get possessed like they do in TV, most likely it's fake, because real possession is not like that. It's very simple. It's brought on very easily. There's not a lot of like these, convulsions and people talking with horrible accents and things like that. It's usually it's very subtle. I've even had situations, because I teach online classes, and I'll have people be like, well, remember how you said in class, like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I didn't say that. And they're like, yeah, you did. And I'm like, no, I didn't. And they're like, yes, you did. And all those classes are recorded. So I'll go back and watch it. And I did say it. I don't remember saying it. I don't even remember being there. I just remember like looking up for a second. And then all of a sudden these things come out of my mouth. And then like, I'm back. You know what I mean? And those are kind of like these little divine messages that come through. That would be just like a very simple form of possession. And so those types of things, which are crazy to me, because I'm like, well, I would wish that I could at least remember so that I know that I said it. But at least I got receipts, right? I got the recordings to prove it. So things like that are a good example of what possession are and what it can do for the good of people, I should say.
Yeah. I love that because you don't hear that. And I knew you would say some fucking enlightening shit.
But I also want to make a call because possessions, right? We're talking about it. I want to say, and we'll cut this out if I'm totally wrong because this was July. Do you not have a story kind of associated though with like a demon or some type of demonic and I feel like we didn't get the opportunity to really jump into it. And I feel like because a lot of people, when they think possessions, they think evil, they think demon. You're saying, no, not necessarily the case, but demons are like a thing.
Yeah, demons are a thing, and demons can possess too. And so I think the thing is that when people hear demons, again, they immediately think Hollywood. They think, The Exorcist, Pazuzu, all these types of things. But demons are essentially just really strong, powerful energies that most of the time, don't have never had human incarnation, right? So they don't have human thoughts. They don't understand human emotions. Angels are kind of the same way if you think about it, because not a lot of them were human. They're just kind of, created. Fairies are a good example, right? And I would equate like those types of energies as all pretty much being the same. Jinn, fairies, angels, demons, they're all these types of nature spirits, essentially, that don't understand human condition. So I tell this, for example, when people work with orishas, for example, in Santeria, they will go to the orisha and be like, help me win my boyfriend back or blah, blah, blah. And the orisha's like, I don't know what that is. Like, why do you want him back? Like, why do you want this? Why do you want that? That doesn't make any sense to me, because they don't understand human condition. Whereas if you go talk to a spirit, for example, who lived on this earth and understands what it's like to be rejected or what it's like to not have money or not be able to eat, then the spirit immediately knows, I know what that's like. And so they can relate and then work for you for that reason. That's why I use a lot of spirits in my work and a lot of necromancy for that reason. But anyway, going back to demons, I will say that people get afraid because they think that they are evil. They're not necessarily evil. They're more just like chaotic neutral, right? They just don't understand. They don't understand our emotions and the things that we go through. Plus, they really just don't care. Like, they don't care about people. They don't care about... Now, every once in a while, you will come across some that do, right? Some that actually want to work with humans, or maybe they've just learned from humans over the years. And that is the situation we were talking about last time, is when I was in high school, some friends of mine, all the people I used to do witchcraft with, we used to work with a Ouija board a lot. And we actually ended up speaking to a demon who, for the longest time, referred to himself as Malp, M-A-L-P. It was always Malp. And Malp had a lot of interesting things to say. Talked about how he was invoked to hurt somebody and just kind of stuck around and kind of observed after. And I think that's kind of where that human condition comes from. And was like, I kind of like you guys. Y'all are really cool. I want to just kind of hang out with y'all, and I'm going to protect y'all whenever y'all need it, right? Now, for the longest time, I just thought, okay, whatever. Random demon that we met named Malp. And then years later, and I've had this whole, on an episode of the Night Owl podcast, I was doing a seance with a bunch of friends, some of whom were witches in college, and we had just kind of like, nothing was happening. It was kind of boring. Nobody was coming through. And then we're doing it again. We're trying for the third session. And immediately I kind of went under. And then I, according to witnesses, because I don't remember much of this, I was breathing really, really hard. And then this other girl who's a witch, she was seeing something flying around in the room. And this other girl who's also a witch was just kind of like staring and like not blinking. So we all kind of got affected in some kind of weird sort of way. The only thing I remember seeing or feeling was what I could describe as two tigers, one red, one blue, fighting each other. And then I screamed, apparently a very loud scream, and then just kind of like came out of it. And all of this was recorded on a little mini recorder type thing, apparently. And I don't know where any of that is because that was a long time ago. The next day, we decided to do another session, a Ouija session, to figure out what was going on. And then the name MLP came up, and it said it was Malp, and that he was protecting me. And that's why I saw fighting, because he was fighting off whatever energy or entity was trying to take over me. And then, at the time, I wasn't really well read until I got to college. So around this time, I started getting more books and things like those along those times. And I came across a book called Goetia, from Limigitan Key of Solomon and Lesser Key of Solomon. And there is an actual demon in the Book of 72 Demons called Malthus, Malphas. And Malthus is said to be, I think he takes on the form of a crow, if I'm not mistaken, and has like a raspy voice. And they're apparently, if you give him some kind of a token or thank him in some way, like give him like a gift, he'll betray you. So I was like, well, I'm glad we never gave him any gifts or anything, but I just thought that was kind of interesting, that I have a demon on my side. So me and my friends, apparently. But yeah, so they can, that was a good example of like a possession for my own protection. Like it was like Malthus or Malp or whoever came into me to protect me from whatever other energy that was trying to come into me. And then that whole story goes even way crazier to my friend Roy, who was actually at the seance, because whatever came off of me went with him. And that's a very, very creepy rest of that story. So you have to check that out. It's really, really creepy. Yeah. That's I think it's South Texas Tales is the episode on the Night Owl podcast for that one.
I find it, because I don't know a lot about like actual demons and stuff,
Yeah.
So that's interesting that if you give him something, he'll betray you. Is there a way to honor a demon without it betraying you, or being like, how do you honor a demon?
Well, I mean, you can work with demons. This is the thing I like about Lesser Key of Solomon is Lesser Key of Solomon gives you an entire ritual format how to work with demons, right? And it's cool, it works, but it's a little outdated. It's like don't eat meat and no sex and all this and all that and like all kinds of draw a million circles and it's pretty outdated. There is another book that I really enjoy by Thomas Carlson called The Kabbalah, Qliphoth, and Goetic Magic, where he broke down Goetia or Goetic magic into like a much simpler way, and he made it almost kind of more folk magic. So, like, for example, if you wanted to work with Malthus or any of the other 72 demons, you could just draw the sigil that represents them on the piece of paper that is close to the color that is connected to what they do, and put that in your wallet, and you're just kind of incorporating or asking that energy to be with you at that time, right? So, for example, if you wanted to do a work with Astaroth, you could do Astaroth, do a purple sigil on a purple paper, keep that on your person while you're connecting to your tarot cards, and you can build clairvoyance with Astaroth. So it's a much simpler and easier way to work with that spirit than I'm going to draw 1,000,000 circles and have to wait 32 days and all kinds of stuff like that. So the cool thing about that is those energies don't necessarily need a thank you. They're just kind of like they're around for what they are. And then another thing too is if you ever read Lamaghitan or the Lesser Key of Solomon, it talks about how those demons have legions of spirits that work beneath them, right? So you're very rarely working with the main boss. You're mostly working with one of their random henchmen, if you will. So I tell this is the same situation in a lot of other practices. Like people are like, I spoke to the Orisha Oshun and she came to me and she said blah, 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 blah. I'm like, well, most likely you actually spoke to a spirit that is connected to or works with Oshun. Very rarely are you going to get the actual Orisha to come down and want to work with you, especially if you're not even initiated, which, let's face it, that's 90% of people who are working with Oshun these days. You have to do your due diligence, right? And that's why I tell people, like, for example, we talked about this earlier, if you're going to ask Oshun to bring love to you, but one, you're not initiated, so you technically shouldn't even be working with her. Two, you're asking an Orisha who you've never connected to in any way to do something for you, yet you've never actually even built a relationship with them or even taken the time to initiate or anything, right? How do you expect them to want to follow through with that? Most likely a spirit on their behalf may come in, they may do the work for you, they may not. That's why I always tell people when you're going to be working with these types of spirits, it's always good to say, if you so choose, if you so please, I would greatly appreciate if you would do this on my behalf, because you can't control the spirit. You can't just immediately ask them to do the things you want to do. You can, but that requires a totally different type of practice. That's more necromantic and going against their will. So when you're working with spirits, you have to build that relationship. Demons, on the other hand, they're pretty cool. Just like, you need something? No? Good? All right, cool, we're good. But you can build relationships with them directly too, right? You can have an altar for Astaroth. You can have a space dedicated for Baal in the basement or wherever. You can do those types of things as well and just work with that one and get all kinds of fun things out of that relationship. So it's possible.
Yeah, that's cool. I like it.
Taking notes.
Well, I didn't, because I don't know. I would love to read, more of these books and stuff, but I'm a stoner. But I wanted to ask you, because we always ask people, like, what's your first experience or most profound or whatever? I want to know, what is one of the most, like, beautiful experiences you've had, whether it was personal or with a client?
A beautiful experience? Okay, so this has to be a beautiful and by far the most gratifying experience. A gentleman came in, actually a gentleman called the store before we were open. And he was like, I'm from Corpus Christi, but I'm in Austin because my son was in a really bad car accident. And I know that, I'm not asking for favors or miracles, but I know that fixed candles can help people. I've gotten my candles fixed in Corpus Christi many times. He's like, I've overcome COVID. I've overcome, all kinds of crazy things just with candles alone. So I have that faith. And he's like, I'm wondering if I can come to the shop and get a candle fixed for my son. And I was like, absolutely, please come by. I'll be here. As soon as we opened, he and I think his girlfriend showed up. And obviously they were pretty distraught. They were showing me pictures of their son. He was in a really bad car accident. And the weirdest thing is the car accident, everybody walked away from except for him. And it was weird. It was like everybody had their seatbelts on. Everybody was fine, but the car swiped. And I guess when it hit him, he kind of like jolted back and hit his head and hit his face. And so they were talking about, brain damage, the possibilities of him not being able to walk again, like just really, really intense stuff. They were saying that this person was, if he was in ICU, he was in critical care. So I told him, I said, well, where do you get your candles fixed? He's like, I go to Tex-Mex Curios. And I said, well, I actually used to live in Corpus. I used to go to Tex-Mex Curios all the time. I know all those areas, So I said, let's do a fixed candle. And I said, we should do the Cruz de Caravaca candle. Because the Cruz de Caravaca has a very famous story of healing, one, but it also has a lot of magical elements behind it. It's connected to the lady who runs Tex-Mex Curios. She actually wrote a book about it. So I said, there's a connection here, So I fixed the candle, got his name of the son and fixed the candle for him. And we added the oils, the herbs, everything. And then before I gave it to him, I had all of us hold it and we prayed for his son for the recovery. And then he asked me if I could burn it because the hospital wouldn't allow burning new candles in the hospital. So I said, yes, absolutely. I said, give me your phone number. Once it burns out, I'll send you a picture or, whatever. So I lit it and I took it home. I lit it. I usually put candles on my stove because it's the easiest way to watch a candle burning. And plus, if let's say it breaks or busts, like the stove is literally a fireproof spot, right? So I had it burning. The next day, I think I was off. Yeah, because I was at the time I had Mondays off, and I get a phone call from Eric, and he's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, that client that came back." I was like, "Oh, okay, what's going on?" She was like, "His son walked out of ICU today, and they don't understand how that's possible." And then he was like, "Are you serious?" I was like, "Are you serious?" He's like, "Yeah." Like he made a 100% full recovery. And so I was like, "Wow, well that's crazy." So the candle's not even done, like it's still burning. So I was like, "Well, that's insane." But I went ahead and let the candle finish out. And then once the candle was done, I took a picture, sent a picture of the candle to the father, and immediately he messaged me back and was like, "You have no idea, like they don't understand." The hospital was freaking out. He literally walked out of ICU, like literally got up and walked out. It was like, I'm ready to go home. Like no wheelchair, nothing. Like he was 100% fine. They could not figure out how this had happened. And I told him, I said, because he was like, "Thank you so much. Thank you so much." And I said, "Don't thank me. This is not me." I said, "This is your faith. This is your belief, your connection to God, your connection to spirit. That's what did the work. All I did was help you find a way to get to there, But to me, that was by far the most amazing recovery story we've ever had, as far as I know, at City Alchemist. So we've had a few, but that is by far one that stands out the most.
Yeah, that's really cool.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's crazy. And I love it too, because the whole time as you were telling the story, I was just thinking like the power of belief, right? And the power of having that connection and really putting your faith, it can change everything. So I think it's really cool that's correlated to that impactful story. I think that's awesome. Just nice.
That's what Don Pedrito taught. That's why he was such a famous curandero. It was about faith. It was never about, the magical cures of water or what these teas can do. It was about faith. He gave you a cure. You had to have faith in it, because then it would work. If you didn't have faith in it, it wouldn't work. And there's stories of people who had like half the faith and literally half the cure worked. There's a famous story about him where a woman did not like her dark complected skin and went to Don Pedrito and was like, "I don't want to be as dark complected. I want to be lighter complected like my family members." So he was like, "Go to the barn behind your house and there's some mud and manure." And he's like, "Put that all over your face and then let it dry and then wash it off. And once you'll have your lighter skin." And she was like, "Mud and manure on my beautiful face? I don't think so." So she did it, but she was too scared to do her whole face. So she just did like half of her face. And then she washed it off. And sure enough, half of her face was lighter complected and the other half was dark. So she's like, "Oh, cool, let me do the other half." And then she did it again and it wouldn't change. So she's walking around with like half a light complexion, half a dark complexion. So she goes back to Don Pedrito and's like, what happened? Like, what's going on? I tried it. It didn't work. And he said, "Because you didn't have full faith. The first time you only had half the faith, so only half the cure worked. The second time you were like, oh, it does work. So, so he said, go back to the barn and do the whole face this time, and then everything will be back to the way it was." So she goes back, she does the whole face. And when she washes it off, both sides are back to dark complexion.
You
So
said
that was
back
the
the way it
lesson.
was.
Yeah.
Yep.
You never had that light complexion all the way.
Yep. Yep. Yeah.
I love it. That sounds kind of like one of those tales you hear in like elementary school, like the golden book tales. It's like,
Yeah.
classic.
Yeah, there's a really great book. I think I have it here somewhere. I know I have the old ones, but it's a bunch of legends from South Texas. It's called Stories That Must Not Die.
Oh
And
yeah, that's the one
that
Peter
has-
has.
Yeah.
Yeah, that has the Stories of Don Burrito in there, and I think that one might be in there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I love that. I know we're creeping up to our time, but I wanted to ask one more question, and then we can wrap it up. Is that okay?
If that's okay with you, because I think we're
Hey, I got all the time in the world.
okay.
Well, again, we've asked this before, but we always ask people that we have on to define the paranormal. Like, how would you explain it to someone? So yeah, we would like your definition of the paranormal.
What is the paranormal? So I think for me, there are things in this world that we cannot define, because there are things like, here's a good example. Every day there's new breakthroughs and discoveries about something. Oh, science has learned this, and that. Science has learned this. So there are things out there that we'll never be able to discover, right? Just because maybe in a million years, who knows? If we've been around that long. So I think that, to me, a lot of what is paranormal, so to speak, is really just our normal part of reality. It's just that it hasn't been proven by science at this moment. So, for example, in spiritualism believes that all spirit communication is scientifically proven, because time and time again, they have done all kinds of experiments. They've had all kinds of people there. No one was able to prove it false, right? They have this all documented. There are pictures, there are photographs, there are people that were there. They're like, I saw this really happened. But yet we still have people that are like, I don't believe in ghosts. I don't believe that spirits can communicate to people. But yet we actually have the scientific proof that they did. But because it's not on a massive global scale, like, okay, spirits are real now. It's not like aliens where like government's like, okay, fine, the aliens are real now. Because of that, that's why paranormal exists. It's like people have to find the alternative aspects of it. So I think that, to me, paranormal is normal. It's just that we have to brand it or group it into this kind of a stigma, simply because there's a good chunk of society that doesn't accept what it is.
What do you think of all this parallel universe shit going on? Didn't they find a parallel universe recently, and it's going backwards apparently?
Is it going backwards?
That's what they said. They said that they think like it's a direct parallel universe, except it's moving backwards from what we do. I don't know exactly what that means.
A good reboot would not necessarily be a bad thing.
Yeah.
But I don't know. That's very interesting to me, because I've always ever since I was younger, I've always loved what I like to call the stop, edit, delete. Do you remember when we were like first getting? I don't know. I'm showing my age. But when we were first getting computers, like we all started to learn like stop, delete, or edit, delete, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then there was a time when I was doing it so much that literally I'd spill a glass of milk or spill a glass of water, and instead of trying to pick up the water, I would reach for the mouse.
Oh shit!
And be like, stop, edit, delete. I'm like, oh wait, no, I can't do that. So if there's a parallel universe that's going backwards, I'm like, to me, that's like, oh, I'd love to be able to go and like maybe move some things around in there and kind of see what happens, just because of that. But I don't know. That's really, really interesting to me. It's really interesting.
Because we've always, I feel like a lot of us do believe in like the parallel universes, or anything's possible, like the infinite nature of the universe. So of course it's possible. Like, in my mind it is. Yeah. I just think it's absolutely interesting that people are writing about it now in like a public, like news media space.
Yeah. It does not shock me in any way. I think that a lot of the things that we, for example, maybe 20, maybe not even 20, maybe like 40 years ago or 30 years ago, would see as like science fiction, or like, oh, it's a fantasy. We're realizing that those things are real. How many times have people like go to Star Trek and they're like, oh, they're talking in these little things, and now like we all have cell phones, right?
Mhm.
If you look at it from that perspective, like it's like we're getting there and we're learning that these things exist. There's this amazing book by a physics professor who was from Haiti, who wrote a book on Haitian voodoo, and he talked about how like the voodoo spirits exist. He's like, but it's not even just that. He's like, it's physics. Like physics can show you there are wormholes and there are alternative realities, and these spirits can go in and out of very, very quickly. So when you call on them, they just go like, oh, right to that wormhole, and then here they are, and they do their thing, and they go right back. And so he was able to basically take all of the entire religion of Haitian voodoo and prove through physics that it's a real thing, right? So it's not even just about spirits, but the fact that there are other worlds that are connected to that. So I think that, like I said before, there's a lot. My only thing is, again, balance, right? You have to find that balance, because if you go way too far left, then you say one wrong word and everybody's like, I don't want to talk to this crazy person, So you have to find that balance. So if, for example, you would have been like, so Alexis, parallel universes are real. Did you know that? I'd be like, yeah, sure. You're like, did you hear about this parallel universe thing? And I'm like, no, tell me more. Like that's more balance as opposed to like just going immediately to the left,
Right.
So you have to find that balance. And honestly, for your own sanity, you have to keep that balance, because if you go far one direction or the other, then you're not keeping yourself in check, essentially.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel that.
100%.
And like me and Leah are getting better at like checking each other and ourselves on like, our harmonies, like, because it's like we're just learning to communicate and stuff, really. So it's interesting. It's cool. I think it's all aligned, really.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I have a million more questions, but we've come to up time. You are such an awesome and interesting person, and I am so glad that you agreed to come and chat with us again, because it's always an honor.
Yeah.
And we would love for you to share with everyone who's listening to this where they can find you, what you're up to next.
So you can find me always at cityalchemist.com. That's our website, City Alchemist Witch Shop. I do readings on there. I do services as well. I do all kinds of fun things on there. Obviously, you can come to the shop. I'm usually there. Usually Tuesdays, as of now, is the only day that I'm there. But sometimes on Mondays, I kind of alternate. And then, of course, sometimes I'm just in and out of the shop. But I'm not there all the time. So people will come like, there's Alexis. I'm like, I got other things to do.
Got a life.
I'm kind of busy, y'all. And because of that, I teach classes. I teach online school. I have an online school called the McMahon Academy of Folk Sorcery, Witchcraft, and Necromancy. We have classes that range all over the place, from Mexican witchcraft to traditional witchcraft, from Mexican folk healing to new types of healing. So we go everywhere. We're doing a class. Actually, I'm doing a class in 2 hours on Yule, because it's the solstice.
Yay, happy solstice!
Yeah, happy solstice.
It is.
Yeah. So then also I have got Magia Invoking Mexican Magic. We've got Blood of Brujeria. We've got new books coming out. We have online classes through our website, through City Alchemist as well. We have some that are digitally recorded. And right now, it's not going to be on whenever this airs, but right now they're 20% off. But who knows? Maybe they will be. So there's all kinds of fun things. And we do have this thing called the Witch Gatherings that we do at the end of every month, which is basically, it's just, the only thing is it's only a few people. So because it's on a smaller space. And we do one kind of experiment every month. So we did Black Mirror scrying last month. Prior to that, we actually did a seance, which is really, really cool. We use a human skull. We use a human fat candle, which is kind of fun. And then prior to that, we did crystal ball gazing and the Pandora Star experiment with Weird ATX, which was amazing. And then I think coming up, we'll be doing the spirit writing, planchette writing, which is coming up this month. And then I'm not too sure what's happening after that. We'll figure it out. But usually at the end of every month. And it's all pay what you wish. It's just limited tickets. So check that out. That's fun. And yeah, if you ever have anything, you can reach out to me on Instagram as well. Journey to McNaughton is my Instagram. It's also the name of a new book I'm working on. So that's why I kept that title. And yeah, you can always ask me questions. I may not reply right away, but I will reply at some point.
Yes. So
Awesome. Beautiful. And I also want to mention again, you can listen to Alexis's episodes on the Night Owl podcast.
Oh yeah. Yes, for sure. That's excellent stuff. I gotta ask just real quick. Do you offer house cleansing?
We do. We with house cleansing, the best thing to do is reach out to us through either Instagram or just through our website, and just let us know where you live, what's going on. Eric does them most of the time because he travels a lot more than I do when it comes to cleansings. But I know that he's literally straight up like taken spirits out of houses a few times. So.
Oh, okay. All right. Well,
Interesting. That was a personal question, I feel.
yeah, no, it was personal. I was
that was not, yeah.
I was like, let me just ask now if it's a.
I'm going to have to edit that out.
I was like, before you get super busy, let me just see if it's something we could do.
You're like, do you do personal cleansings, house cleansings? How much are they? When can you get them?
Just out of curiosity. The viewers want to know.
But no, and I like I said earlier, I've been asked those questions. I'm like, I'm gonna need you to go to Alexis or go to City Alchemist, talk to them, and I'm sure if it's not them, they'll find you someone that you can trust to get it done. So you know, so, yeah, I'm gonna ask. I'll hit you up after the new year.
Okay.
No. But again,
We could do a follow up on it.
Yeah. Seriously, you're gonna walk into my house and be like, "What the fuck?" No.
This time, her house cried.
Just screamed out.
Blood shot from out of the doors.
No, stop it. It's not bad. Anyways, thank you so much for your time. Have a great Saturday and a happy holidays and all those good things.
Yeah.
Also, have a wonderful, happy holiday.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much. Woo! Now yeah.
Dude, such a good time, man.
Yeah, that was awesome.
Like, it's real hard to say goodbye when it's just such a good conversation with good people.
Dude, every time we talk with him, it's like I always have like 100 more questions than when I started, you know? And that's really cool because, you know, I love to learn the things. And like I said earlier in the interview, I'm not super motivated, you know? But I wish I was.
No, I agree. It's always so fun and it's educational. And I think, again, like we mentioned in the conversation, it just shows that he's serious about his practice. He's no BS, and that's why we enjoy talking to him and enjoy supporting him. So we hope that if this isn't your first time learning about him, that now you're a fan just like us.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you're ever in the Austin area, please go check him out. Get your Olympia because we know you, Sucio.
But even like Alexis said, it's all about balance. And oh gosh, we got to give ourselves a cleanse.
Let's do.
Omni rigere suminaro. Omni rigere suminaro.
Take a big deep breath in. Release that baby out. You're cleansed.
I feel good.
Good. I feel good.
How do you not, you know?
We hope you had a great time chilling with us today. Per usual, I'm Bethany.
And I'm Leah.
And we're going to sign off with two besitos.
From these potitos.
internet shopping.